Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. I'm Dan Gershenson, your host this week from Caliber Brand Strategy and Content Marketing. I am joined by our roundtable of experts, Ken Tucker and Paul Barthel from Cape Web, Jen Kelly from New Initiatives Marketing, and Ian Cantle from Outsource Marketing. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Today, we are going to talk about what small businesses can do to crack the hiring code, marketing their business to attract more of those special all-star candidates. By the way, this topic is near and dear to me. The first 5 years of my career were spent at a recruitment marketing firm, and I still have the mug I found. Every business at one time or another, even in a challenging economy, has to consider what they need to bring aboard for not only support, but for growth. And if there's something on the horizon for you as a hiring manager anytime soon, or as a business owner, we're going to discuss several terrific strategies that are going to get your business hiring smarter and in line with your brand at the same time. So let's talk about that further with our panel. Ken, we're going to start with you. It seems like whenever we have talked in the past about marketing, advertising, brand strategy, all of that seemed to fall within this exclusive domain of the marketing department. But how much of that brand strategy should, in your opinion, mirror the recruitment strategy and vice versa? And then second part of that question, I guess, is why is it so important that HR has a greater say in the development and evolution of the brand?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think when we talk about marketing, we make the mistake that that's always outbound. It's always outward projection of what is the brand as seen by people who are not associated with the brand. But the reality is, and this is going back. I mean, gosh, I have a master's degree with an emphasis in organizational behavior and corporate culture. Corporate culture is critical. And if you're trying to find a way to recruit the best employees, sometimes your best advocates are all of the other employees that you have. You've got to be consistent in your messaging, and your communication with them. It really shouldn't be any different than what it is to the outside world. But I think a lot of people have this tendency to fall into this silo mentality. And, for example, I've worked with a few promotional products companies over the years. Everybody wants to run to the marketing people because it's perceived that they're the ones that have all the money, but in reality, the HR people have started to gain a lot more clout. And I think it's only going to accelerate now with the challenges we face in terms of getting, high quality employees, whether you're in the trades or whether you're in the professional services, to where the HR department has to play that critical role. And, the more, it's a lot easier to recruit people if you've got that alignment between the strong perception of, hey, this is an awesome company, this is a great brand, people know about it, they're proud about it, they're excited to wear their shirts to work, or their apparel, and they're just proud to be associated with that. That's going to do wonders for the HR department. But the HR department needs to take more ownership of this, and they need to realize that, and what I think as we explore this, we can talk a little bit more about some things that I think the HR department can do to really help market themselves. And I think they need to put together marketing campaigns now. It's not just the old recruiting, hey, let's set up an interview and let's go from there. It's a different world because people have choices, and everybody is fighting for resources in a big way right now.
Yeah, it would seem like the way you're describing would be so much more fluid for both sides of the table, because if you can get HR and marketing and anybody else on board at the same time, you avoid this kind of thing where, let's say you're doing a recruitment campaign as a marketing person, and you're pitching it to HR, but then HR is like, okay, that's great. We got to run this by marketing. And you're like, so you have to like do another hurdle and a whole new set of people. Whereas I think what you're getting at is let's all get it together at the same time, like from the get-go, right?
Yeah, you really should work on organizational alignment, and that it ultimately comes down to your communication strategy within your organization and external to your organization.
Ian, let's talk about reputation management here for a sec, because it seems like there is an opportunity for it to play a role in hiring. I was coming across this stat on LinkedIn. It was kind of eye-opening, is that 75% of job seekers are going to research a company's reputation before actually applying for a job. So if I'm a hiring manager right now, what should I be thinking about and can I do to improve my business's reputation in the eyes of a potential candidate? And let's say that I have a few, a negative review or two from Glassdoor or Indeed. It happens, especially when somebody leaves the company. What kinds of things can they do for a proactive reputation management strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing I would make clear here is that what you do for hiring reputation and corporate cultural reputation is very, very similar to what we would do for the external facing reputation of a business. They're very similar marketing tasks in that, first of all, you need to make sure that you have a great culture. This should go unsaid, but I'm saying it anyways. You have to have a great internal culture. You have to be creating a place where people love to work and deliver great value to clients. If you don't, it's the same as trying to build up your reputation as a business. If you're delivering poor quality products or services and bad customer service, no matter how many reviews you ask for, you're not going to have a great reputation. So you have to make sure that you're creating a great workplace. The second part of it, though, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
No. I was just going to say, is there a way to do that without, sometimes it feels forced internally when they try to do that. Like, hey, say good things about us, get our rating up there.
Well, that's the exact point I'm making and I've been in workplaces like that where maybe things aren't going well for you, and yet HR is saying, hey, we've created this fantastic internal reputation type system. We want you to be doing things on Glassdoor. And you're like, I don't think you really want me to be doing that right now. I think, we need to fix some things internally. But what I was going to say is the process is very similar in that you have to have a systematic approach. You have to have goals. What are we trying to achieve? You need to have a systematic approach of how you're going to, again, assuming that things are good in your workplace, setting up, first of all, even before you ask your employees to go out and do these reviews, because I think you should be proactively asking people to do that on your team. But do an employee satisfaction survey. And depending on the size of your business, that might even just be having frank discussions with people and saying, Tim, how do you feel about working here? Like, how are things going? Are you feeling good? And then right up to, if you're a larger small business, it's doing an employee satisfaction survey and getting people to answer key questions about their satisfaction as an employee. And then, of course, that leads nicely into doing a proactive approach to asking your employees to leave reviews on select platforms that are valuable to you as a recruitment company. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, even on Google, like it can be very helpful on there. Because just like consumers and B2B businesses educate themselves before buying to a large extent, employees are doing that more and more, and culture is becoming such an important thing to younger generations. So it's really important to do that. And sorry, yeah. I should add one last thing. Just like with doing, if you get bad reviews on Glassdoor, a strategy to overcome that is very similar to what we would do for overcoming bad reviews on Google for businesses. It's to overwhelm bad reviews with good reviews. So be proactive about it. Deliver great quality employment and places of to work, and then just be proactive and overwhelm those bad reviews with good reviews.
I think
employee satisfaction surveys are anonymous, or you won't get honest answers.
Great point, Paul. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think another easy test is to ask the employees what the mission statement is. If they don't know the mission statement, you don't have alignment and consistency across the organization.
Yeah, it would seem like some of the ones that really get it are the ones who are, people who are at random asked or happen to say, that's how we do things here, or that's not how we do things here. It's like those people get it. And I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, those are the kinds of people that you want to be more deliberate about asking for reviews. Or, is that the way that you typically approach it, where you're kind of advising people to say, well, don't put all this out there at once, like asking 100 people to suddenly start reviewing us. Target the people that you think are going to be, after a certain point, are going to give us an honest and fair shake as far as giving us a review.
Yeah, and absolutely. And just like with external review requests, you don't ask the people that hate you, right? If you have severe dissatisfaction with one or two employees, you don't ask them to do the reviews. You don't be proactive that way. You solve the problem first, and then if and when you're able to solve that problem, you ask them. But go to other people that are having greater satisfaction.
Yeah, and I would think also it kind of almost plays into, I didn't think about this until now, how much it plays into even how you're hiring in the beginning. Is this a person who's going to get it? Is, as far as our culture, do they get not just the role of what they're going to do, but do they get the culture? And can I envision them 6 months or a year from now giving us a great review that they really understand what we're all about and can speak well of us on Glassdoor or Indeed? So, cool. Jen, this is one that we often think about when it comes to, we know that having a strategy is kind of at the forefront of building any great brand. Knowing your target, your competitors, your positioning, all the things that we talk about for traditional brand strategy. But how much of that strategic approach comes into play when you're building a recruitment brand? Is there anything that's the same, different? How do you usually approach that?
Yeah, well, I'll speak about it from my point of view in my company, and a lot of who we hire is either freelancers or contractors, and we're talking these are for long-term engagement. So I do have a bench of folks that have been working with me for about 5 years. But they're still, on their own and whatnot. And I think what's important is to be a little bit more humble than a lot of employers have been when they put up the posting. And of course, you want to work here, and this is who we need. I think in the same way that we're humble with our clients, meeting them where they're at. Maybe they don't know, yet that they need a whole marketing strategy. They just came to us with a problem with their website. Let's talk there and, bring them along that way. I think we have to meet our potential employees the same way. Like, where are you at? What are you looking for? That kind of thing. And what I mean by that too is, your people aren't going to be with you forever. I'm sorry to say, you know what I mean? So it could be that folks are looking at your organization as like, okay, this might be a 2-year, 18-month stepping stone. And I think if you can be, honest about that at the beginning, you can get so much help out of it. So I have a story to share right now. We have someone who just out of MBA school wants to take over the world, wants to run global marketing, but even did admit in the interview process, I am full of like strategy and case studies. I don't know how to put any of this to work in the real world. And so, and we did bring this person on, and what we say in every project that we hand over to them is, okay, keep it in mind where you're at. At one point, you want to run a global team. You got to make sure that you know what your global team is doing. This part of this project is going to help you learn A, B, C, D. And in that way, you'll be able to direct folks, later on. And what I have found with sort of putting those pieces together so they can see, okay, this isn't just, a job for now. I can see how this is helping me build to where I want to go. It's been really, I guess, humbling too, to know that at some point these people are going to leave the nest, right? But that can you be the employer, or can you be the brand or the company that really help them get either their start or help them really solidify certain skills at a certain point in their career. And that can do nothing but be a great word of mouth technique for you if you can, I guess, be humble about where they're at and what you can give them on their own career path.
You're speaking to something there that I think sometimes we've often talked about with business owners, which is they worry about, well, if I train them up, are they going to leave in a year or two anyway, or 3 years or something? And I think what you're talking to is really how your brand can expand beyond your internal walls, and people can talk well about you after they've left. As you said, yeah, they're probably going to leave. They are going to leave eventually, some way, one way or another. But you would like them to be able to speak so well of you after they've left and said, oh, it was a great environment. I was mentored. I had all these great opportunities, whatever it is. I think that's where, your approach, that's what, when you're talking to people about that.
Yeah, it is. And it goes to a bigger, I guess, a bigger emotional thing around how are we participating in the business world? Like, how are we helping the next generation? How are we helping, everybody that comes into contact with our brand or our company be the next best web designer, the next best customer service agent, that kind of thing. So, it just, how can we help the business community of wherever we are locally, uplift itself and become better? And I know there is some, complaints. I guess there's been complaints since the beginning of time, kids today and that, that kind of thing. But I think if you can take the type of attitude around whether it's, someone from a different industry coming into your industry or different age group or different skill set, how can we help this person become the next best business person in our community? And that helps a lot of us. I know that's a very positive way to look at it, but it's made it more enjoyable. And I've been able to see folks in my own team actually blossom that way. And then, you get the proverbial folks coming to the table with more ideas than you asked for. And it can just help push you forward.
Jen, one of the things that you said there, sorry, it really struck a chord with me. I'm helping a business in the trades. They're currently, the trades are super hard to hire in right now because there's a hunger, there's less supply than demand. And one of the things in our discussion that kind of came out through the process of consulting with them was that up till now, they've looked at these people in these specific roles as filling that role. Whereas what you're talking about and where our discussion ended up going was, how can you help these people see a longer picture? Like, how is this in their personal and professional development going to open up new horizons, rather than you're coming in to fill this role and there's actually no path after this, right? So you're talking about the long-term vision, not just for yourself as a business, because you have that, but also how can I help this person see a longer-term vision that will be very enticing to them, because my competitors might not be talking about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
Paul, when we are talking about content for recruitment purposes, the thing I admit that we tend to think about first and foremost is the job description, sometimes on a job board or on a company website. And lately it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, that there's these job descriptions are asking you to do like 20 different things or something. In reality, though, there's probably a lot more types of content that as a company can consider producing. to show off what the company's all about. So what are some things, like whether we're talking about culture or new projects, new opportunities, anything like that, what kind of suggestions do you have about that direction?
Well, job description is just one part of the recruitment process. Obviously, they have to know what they're going to be doing, but having employee reviews. Back to what Ian was talking about, you can have the employees do video testimonials, but if you have a great internal working culture in the first place, then it shouldn't be a problem. If you don't have that, that obviously needs to be addressed. And talking about the fact that this isn't necessarily you're going to be pigeonholed into just this. There are paths beyond that, and having current employees talk about, well, I started here and then I moved on to here, so there is that opportunity for advancement. That is another way to get around that. It's just about the job description. But I think a lot of it does go back to what both Ian and Jen were talking about, is that there probably is a path beyond this, and you have to get that across, and you have to have that internal culture fixed first. In case there's any issues there, you need to address that first, because if you have that, then asking employees to do these things shouldn't be a problem.
Got it. Yeah, it's such a difference from, I don't know about you guys, but my dad worked the same job for his entire life, just one job. And now, last I heard,
Not anymore.
Yeah, last I heard, I think it's down to an average tenure of less than 3 years at a company, which is mind blowing to me. So it's, I think it's somehow getting these stories down at just the right moment, when you can, knowing that, yeah, they may not be with you in 2 or 3 years. So one of the things that really struck me, Ken, was you were when we first started talking about this last week. You were mentioning something about selling a candidate on the local city or the town, especially if you're not from there, which many times is the case. So I could be from, let's say, New York. I'm taking a job in Denver. I've never been there before. Talk to me about some of the things besides the work itself, the job description, and what I'll be doing. What are some great ways that a company can help market their cities, their towns to candidates, so they can start to visualize themselves working there?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things come to my mind. One is reach out to your local chamber of commerce, find out what promotional materials they have. Think like a realtor, right? Maybe even set up a couple of meetings with realtors to find out what's going on in the local market. How do they sell people? Do they work with relocation? Because there are realtors who do specialize in relocations, and get all of that down. Go do your research. Look, there are, in any city, I guarantee you, well, hopefully this is the case. If not, you may be in real trouble. But in any city, there are going to be people who are writing about your city, talking about all of the great things. Get those blog posts, get them organized, read up on it, learn about those things. And then, from there, I would actually recommend, I would create a landing page that I would send my candidates to. And on that landing page, I'm going to have a video or a series of videos that I would ask them to watch before we even talk and we even go through the interview process. Because if they don't like what they see about the city and they're not really serious about relocating, why waste either one of our time, right? Develop common objections, or concerns. Okay, well, I don't understand, I don't think I could afford to move there. Yeah, you can, because here's really what's happening in the real estate market. We can help you get set up. We can do this. We can do that. I think, but video content is your friend, and I don't know, if it's permeated on the HR side of things in the recruiting process. But if you're talking to several candidates, I guarantee you're saying the same things over and over and over again. You're answering common objections that they have. You have to explain the way the company operates, maybe the career path that's available to somebody. Maybe it's what are the pros and cons about moving into the new city that you might be trying to pull people into. Video is your friend. You script it out, you think it through, you record it a couple of times, you nail it, and then you do it once and it's there and available, and then it's a disqualifier for anybody. If nobody is willing to watch those videos, why are you going to waste your time talking to them? They clearly can't follow directions. Case over. Wash your hands of it, be done. You're going to save yourself a whole lot of time.
Yeah. It's funny because I think one thing that you made me think of is some people, as we come out of this pandemic, around here at least, I'm just going to use Chicago as an example. There's going to be interviews in June, July, and August. And in June, July, and August, this is the greatest city in the world, I think. But there's something else that's coming that's called winter that happens as soon as October, and suddenly this isn't the greatest city anymore. So I think that speaking to a lot of what you're saying is get some real insight from people who work there as far as, what are some things I have to work. These are real things. Like, you don't want to hire somebody in the summer and then have them leave 6 months later because, I never realized this weather was going to be as harsh as it is, that kind of stuff. Things you don't think about.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's super important. Video is your friend. I mean, video, we've talked about video, in so many other aspects of marketing. Look, I think a strong recruitment series of videos would do wonders for any business, and it's going to save you time. It's going to find out if somebody can follow directions. Maybe they disqualify themselves during the process as another way of disqualifying, because that's also an important element of making sure that you get the right folks in place. But it's also, it's going to become an important marketing aspect, and you should be honest. Like you said, if you need to tell people and warn them about the seasons, because you don't want to pay for somebody to be relocated to come to work for you, only to have them leave within 3 to 6 months because they can't stand the weather.
Right.
Hey, Ken, what about a recruitment funnel? Like something you were just talking about there, I've never seen actually built out for businesses. Just like we build out marketing funnels for products and services, could you build a recruitment funnel with some of the elements you were just talking about?
Heck yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you should. And that's part of the process. On this landing page, it depends on where you're at in the process, right? If you're already sending people to a landing page because they've already applied, then I don't know that the funnel's nearly as important. But if you're in the process of trying to get somebody to just apply and say, hey, yeah, that sounds like a cool job, or that sounds like a great company, not sure about the city, yeah, by all means, have a guide on your website, that talks about how great it is to work for the company, how great it is to be in the community and the community involvement. And one of the weird things that's going to happen here as we come out of the COVID economy is there's going to be massive population shifts.
Yeah.
There are going to be people who are leaving urban centers because they were locked down. They needed to be locked down, but they were seriously locked down, moving to places that had, fortunately for them, better flexibility in how they could allow people to work. People are going to be rethinking the nature of work, what they want to do for their career, where they want to be, the lifestyle. COVID has, shown a lot of people, I think, hey, we may not live forever. It slaps you right upside the face each and every day when you hear a friend who's passed away that is your age, or their parent, or whatever. You're rethinking mortality. So I think it's important when you're talking about the recruiting process, you've got to address all these things. And as companies, we still don't know how it's going to shake out in terms of having to have people come back and work in the place of the business versus providing some flexibility. I think there are going to be more demands from employees than there ever have. You need to think through all of that kind of stuff, and some businesses, like in the trades, we work with some painters. They tend to be outside a lot of the time. They may have to go inside some of the time. How does that change moving forward now? And when you're trying to recruit a new painter, are there fears that they have that you need to overcome? Or is it an opportunity because before they were stuck in a job where they were trapped inside and were really concerned about their exposure, and now maybe they have an opportunity to work in an outside environment that maybe, even though it's hard work, maybe it's a safer environment from a pandemic perspective,
It's a huge thing, I think, because of that cost of living question is always been there. But I think now, because of what we just went through, now it's become a huge thing. I keep hearing, for the longest time, I always heard that, people are going to leave Silicon Valley, let's say, because it's so ridiculous. But it seems like now we're finally seeing a little bit of that where somebody goes, well, I'm going to hire a programmer, let's say, and I'm in Silicon Valley or something. And if the programmer likes mountains and wants to live, say, in Utah instead of California, how can we make that work? Instead of suddenly saying, well, it's got to be here. It's got to be under this roof. I think all of that seems to be changing now.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting balance because there are people who are leaving the type of work that they did because those industries were just hammered by COVID, and they're looking for opportunities. Maybe there's some retraining that needs to happen and whatnot, but I think businesses really need to think through all of this stuff.
Yeah,
and it's fundamental. And it's when you're dealing with challenging times, whether it was a really good time for your business or whether it was a real struggle for your business, it is always the time to reevaluate and relook at everything you're doing and see what makes the most sense moving forward.
Yeah. Ian, one of the more tried and true methods I think we've seen for a long time in recruitment is the employee referral program. I'm sure in any places that we worked before this life of ours, we probably worked for somebody else and they had an employee referral program, and you're asking someone essentially, hey, if you know someone who is a qualified person for hire in this department, this category of work, and if they're actually hired, that employee doing the referring gets some kind of reward. What do you think that a business has to do internally to get people excited about an employee referral program? Because these things, they can take off or they can flop based on how you are internally communicating. So what are some suggestions you have on that to make that type of program a success?
Yeah, I said it already, but I'm going to say it again. Make your workplace a great place to work. That is the first thing, because you want great employees to refer other great employees. You don't want the bad ones to refer bad employees just for the money. The money is an incentive to get people to act. So make sure it's a great place to work. The second thing is make sure you develop a program, a plan, put it on paper so that, regardless of the size of business you are, even if it's, a business under 10 employees, make sure you put it on paper, because you don't want it to be just, hey, the boss said I get, $1,000 if this person is hired or something like that, and then something changes. You don't want that, because that right there creates bad vibes, right? You want it to be clear. I think the business needs to very clearly also state, these are the type of people we're trying to attract. Not just here's the job posting, because that's normally what's done, is here's the job posting, send out the teams to go find people, which works. The incentives work. Make sure the incentives are incentive enough to get people to act. But I think really creating that, we're looking for people with this type of attitude that will be great team members, that want to grow with a business that's growing, whatever it is, right? Develop that vision for, these are the type of people we want. And then publicize it internally. Again, regardless of the size of your business, you have to talk it up all the time. Even if you're not actively having, a hiring need, keep talking it up, because you will have a hiring need eventually. And then the other thing I think, I haven't seen this done well, is making sure that you publicize the win-win of when somebody is hired. So not only are you handing over some cash or whatever the incentive is to your employee, you're actually internally raising those people up and saying, like, yo, Joe, Jean, she was able to bring us Kim or whoever, and Kim's a rock star. So just making sure that you are, creating great vibes internally about an internal referral program.
I think those ambassadors are so huge sometimes, those high energy people. And sometimes it kind of goes back to what we started from the very beginning, where, oh, well, they're in that department, we can't use them. Or there has to be a marketing person that sort of launches all of this. It would seem to me like identifying some of those great people who always just have so much enthusiasm for doing something new or for the company, and regardless of what their title is, regardless of what department they're in, start enlisting those people early on, right? Like getting them excited, getting their input on those incentives that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And ask your employees, what's going to get you to help find somebody for us, right? We're a team, but this is an extra thing we're asking you to do. And then, gauge that kind of response. Obviously looking out into the community and seeing what your competitors are doing. In the trades right now, like a lot of the postings actually talk about incentive programs. Now, these aren't referral incentives that are on the posting, but these are incentives for if you come to an interview, if you get hired. But they're also being forthright that if there is a referral, there's this, some of them aren't like a lump sum incentive for money. Money is often the incentive, but sometimes it's when they get hired, you get X number of dollars. If they last 3 months, you get X number of dollars. If they last a year, you get X number of dollars. Which is, again, opportunity to just bolster the great vibes. You're creating, that culture of winning together.
That's great. Jen, if there's a bigger topic these days than diversity, I don't know what it is. And it seems like diversity of candidates has become like this, just a gigantic thing for people to wrap their arms around. Types of candidates we might interview, types of candidates we might hire. What is it, where can a business start, in your opinion, as far as marketing their brand to put it out there that, hey, we're looking for these types of diverse set of candidates for hire? Is there anything they can speak to or demonstrate that's kind of helpful here to sort of show that they're all about diversity and inclusion?
Sure, absolutely. So I have a list here of diversity, but diversity, I think it's really important for the company to get it right about what they mean about diversity. So when you say diversity, I guess in the environment we're in right now, you probably mean ethnic diversity. But there's age diversity, gender, experience, life stage, personality, whether someone has a physical disability or mental disability or not, the industry they come from, whether they're a big company person, small company person, or entrepreneurial person. So there's tons of diversity. And each one of those can significantly add to your business for sure, right? What does your company feel about hiring folks from outside the industry, right? There might be some rub about that, or there might be the thinking of like, oh my God, well, I came from outside the industry. That would be great. Same with age as well. Is it always the spring chickens you want, or do you want someone in their 50s or 60s that really understands what the word deadline means? You know what I mean? Like it depends what you're looking for, but I just want to make sure that you're thinking broader than just, ethnic or gender diversity that we have that has basically the spotlight in today's conversation. And I think what can be helpful about that is so for example, if we think about, is someone coming from a small company coming to our large company, it's a whole different ballgame on how, what the day-to-day, what the culture's like. Sometimes the pace of it, sometimes, what really goes on day-to-day in a company like that. And just being really, really clear about like, what is really our environment? Who do we think the best person is? And who are we open to, thinking about having come onto our team? So as I look at the list here, I mean, all of these different, types or attributes or life stages of someone can definitely help your company. But then it can also, be a jam in the gears as well if you get the wrong person in there. And it's not always about, their personality. Can they get it along with everybody? It's, maybe they're they think it's going to be very romantic to change industries, and actually going from big company to startup is just a nightmare for them. So all this to say, I think it's really important for the company to understand, what do we really mean about diversity, and what do you think? What do we think is worth taking a shot at? What have we tried before, and what are we going to be willing to open up to?
It's funny because I think I'd like to think we've come a long way from trying to find the best stock photo of a boardroom of different people, because I'm joking, but I'm not. It's, a long time ago. Diversity as itself has been around as far as, long time ago when we were asked to do a diversity ad, that's literally what it meant, was like, okay, well, we have to show all the right people in this one photo. And it just happened over and over and over again. And fortunately now, I think hopefully we're coming to a point where it's like what you're saying, there's so much more depth and richness that we can show about our culture and how we interact with people and appreciate other people's input when we talk about diversity.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we got a ways to go, because the first thing that comes to mind, in business anyways, you've got your top 30 under 30, top 40 under 40. And if you kind of look at that, you just think like, well, are there no more ideas after you turn 41? Like,
I felt smarter after 40. I don't know about any of you guys. I mean, 40 was when I started to get it together.
There we go. Right.
Really?
So
I
that's a whole other podcast.
That yet.
I don't even want to tell you my 20-year-old self. I could just.
So there's, I mean, but I think in today's environment, it's a beautiful opportunity to open that up and just say, like, what can we do, and who can come onto the team, and how can we make this work, and just be open to it. One of the things that we do, I mean, it's always a risk to bring someone in, for sure. What we typically do, mind you, we are set in a way that it's contract and freelancers that we use mostly, but we typically start off with a small project. Right? Because everybody can look good on paper. Everybody can look good in the few interviews, right? Like everything can be lovely until it comes time to actually doing the work together. So we always test with a small project to see, like, how is it really to work together? How's your communication style? Like, do we jive? That kind of thing. And that can tell you pretty quickly both ways, if you can move forward, if you should say goodbye.
And then there's some cool tools that are helping us sort of identify some of these people as far as their traits. Crystal is, I think, is one of them, or StrengthsFinder, or things like that. Disc,
yeah.
Things like that at least, it can tell us so much more about a person and where their strengths lie. So that's just another diversity angle there too.
No, it is. I think that's a big problem too, especially being sort of an owner operator, making sure that that you realize either if you have a bias to, or if you haven't figured out how to not do this, hiring folks that are too much like you, right? I mean, it does help to have the other personalities and the other behavior styles. I mean, it can, a team can only really work that way. So,
yeah,
it doesn't work very well to have a team that's all INTJ.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little tough. Paul, as a lot of hiring managers, I think, the first thing that on the tip of their tongue is LinkedIn. They're always thinking usually about the best place to look for talent is, hey, let's post a job on LinkedIn. If they're not posting on it like a job board, let's say. But if we're talking about getting potential applicants where they live, what are some other channels that you think might be a good, I know every company is different, but have you seen some other really good examples of other social media channels besides LinkedIn where there could be a good place to look? Like, is there merit in doing, let's say, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, any of those kinds of places, and then some that make sense for applicants that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what you said about where they are in the industry you're in. If you're in a professional services industry, if you're an accountant, LinkedIn is probably great. But if you're an interior design company, you probably want to maybe look on Pinterest or Facebook, more visual platforms. If you're a home services industry, Facebook may be a good place to be because a lot of your potential employees are probably going to be on Facebook. So it really comes back to, like you said, what social media platforms are your potential employees going to be using? And that's going to be largely dependent on what your industry is. You probably don't have a lot of surf shops, for instance, posting on LinkedIn. It's just probably not going to happen. So, yeah, it really depends on the industry you're in, and that's what you have to keep in mind. So, yes,
dude.
Yeah,
Dude.
Hey, dude. Hey.
exactly. Well, I mean, even certainly communities too, so Facebook groups, obviously you have to be respectful of the policies of each group that's out there, right? But, I mean, for certain places, I mean, even looking at, a site like Reddit or someplace like that is probably worth pursuing for, because you've got to go where your ideal client is going to be. And in this case, your ideal client is, prospective employee. Where are they spending time? It's worth, everything we talk about in marketing pertains to hiring people too, but I don't think we've thought about it in that same way. You should create videos for recruitment purposes, and putting those on YouTube or Facebook is going to give you a great way to get reach to those people that maybe are just beginning that buyer's journey, if you will, where they're starting to think, maybe I really am ready for a change, and want to make a career choice change, or stay within the same career but just go to work for somebody else. And so absolutely you should be leveraging those.
Well, a couple of things about using the social media channels is it lets you reach a larger pool of candidates, first of all, and it supports a real interactive two-way conversation, or at least it can, and it engages the potential employee in an environment where they're comfortable and safe on a platform they're already using that they're familiar with. And it leads to a more natural conversation, and it can help you get a feel of who they really are. Like Jen said, anyone can look good in the interview or, on paper, but it allows you to engage with them practically in real time. And you can get a better idea of who this person really is and what their personality is.
Hey, Paul, quick question. So a lot of the advertising that we've been talking about and that's thought naturally of is targeted billboard advertising, right? Meaning like a Facebook ad, a Pinterest ad, all of those things, you're targeting a specific geography and a specific type of people with specific interests, but they're not actively looking for a job. Whereas LinkedIn, you might be able to do that. What about Google? Like, have you heard, or does it make sense to do Google ads where people are basically self-qualifying? Because if they're in a particular geography and they're searching for, marketing jobs in Denver, and that's where you are, could you do an ad that way?
I have seen those. We actually a while back had a company that approached us about it. Never really went anywhere, but that would be a very specific, very targeted thing, in my opinion. Because, like you said, they're going to have to be looking for that.
Yeah, yeah, but we haven't really talked about Google Job Search.
That's true.
That's starting to become a big factor, and I mean, we're looking, as a marketing company. My biggest struggle is my clients can't grow because they can't hire. So we have to rethink all of this. And so, I'm looking at job board technology where we could post jobs that get them posted out there, with the proper Google job search schema so that they're going to show up when people are looking. You have to think about all of that. And the reality is, I think businesses need to start thinking about this now. They are going to have to spend as much or more money in hiring the right people as in going and getting new customers for many industries.
Wow.
I mean, it's just a cold, hard reality. And that means that you need to be prepared to increase your prices, and you have to think about how are you going to be able to demonstrate value to the people who buy your products or services for those higher prices. Because the reality is, in a competitive market, if you turn on the news or you have some kind of a news feed stream that, I love Flipboard, for example, a couple of times a week, you see a story about a company that decided to increase how much they pay people or add some cool new benefits. And guess what? They no longer have a problem recruiting and hiring people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something to go along with that is, and we kind of touched on it, is the awareness. You're going to have to build your brand, and I think it was Ian that alluded to this. Is that at some point you're going to have to hire people, and we tend to think of brand awareness as a nationwide thing for major companies, but you can be a well-known brand in your local market. And companies are going to have to start thinking of it in those terms, and I won't get into it. It's called, Google refers to it as entities. That might be a podcast, but it's something businesses are going to have to start thinking about, because from a marketing standpoint anyway, a lot of data is being taken away from us. So businesses are going to have to start thinking of themselves in a different context, even if they're just a local entity or local brand. It may not be a nationwide thing, but they're going to have to start thinking in those terms.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. That's a good place for us to tie it up. Thanks to our listeners for giving us a little extra time this week. But hopefully that's some really good, excellent insight. For those of you who are ready to pick up your outreach and crack that hiring code, I think we've hopefully, as hiring managers, we've given you a ton to think about. And by the way, if you are a marketing, advertising, PR person, hopefully we've opened your eyes to the fact that the marketing department is not the only entity in the company that you might want to approach. HR may be, very hungry for you to be knocking on the door and giving them some ideas too. So hopefully these thoughts are going to help folks make a direct line to the all-star candidate they've been thinking of. So I'd like to thank our panel for the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast, Ken, Ian, Jen, and Paul. And we will be back next week with another exciting topic to propel your brand further. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care.